So I'm reading from the editor's preface, and the editor is George R. Elder, PhD. Here's what he wrote. I should note, however, that the author's concern for apocalyptic issues is not new. Since the second half of Jung's answer to Job deals with revelation, Edinger had to comment upon it in his own work, Transformation of the God Image and Elucidation of Jung's Answer to Job. And the author was really in the realm of apocalypse in his study of the new God image, Goethe's Faust, and the seminal essay entitled The New Myth in the Creation of Consciousness. These are all references to the books of Edward F. Edinger. The timing of these 10 lectures, and so this book, which I'm referring to today, The Archetype of the Apocalypse, is actually a collection of 10 lectures that Dr. Edward F. Edinger gave to the Jung Society of LA in 1995. The timing of these 10 lectures on the specific topic of the archetype of the apocalypse in early 1995, however, became shockingly apt. Within a month of their delivery, there occurred the nation's worst terrorist attack. The federal building in Oklahoma City was bombed by an American possessed by the archetypal idea that the 168 men, women, and children he killed and the hundreds he wounded were part of an evil empire. He killed them also in revenge for the deaths 2 years earlier of 80 persons of an apocalyptic cult killed in a fiery blaze in Waco, Texas. Deeply moved, Edinger wrote to his city's newspaper the following letter entitled entitled The Psychology of Terrorism. Quote, terrorism is a manifestation of the psyche. It is time we recognize the psyche as an autonomous factor in world affairs. The psychological root of terrorism is a fanatical resentment, a quasi-psychotic hatred originating in the depths of the archetypal psyche and therefore carried by religious, that is, archetypal energies. A classic literary example is Melville's Moby Dick. Captain Ahab, with his fanatical hatred of the white whale, is a paradigm of the modern terrorist. Articulate terrorists generally express themselves in religious, that is, archetypal terminology. The enemy is seen as the principle of objective evil, the devil, and the terrorist perceives himself as the heroic agent of divine or objective justice, God. This is an archetypal inflation of demonic proportions, which temporarily grants the individual almost superhuman energy and effectiveness. To deal with terrorism effectively, we must understand it. We need a new category to understand this new phenomenon. These individuals are not criminals and are not madmen, although they have qualities of both. Let's call them zealots. Zealots are possessed by transpersonal archetypal dynamisms deriving from the collective unconscious. Their goal is a collective, not a personal one. The criminal seeks his own personal gain, not so the zealot. In the name of a transpersonal collective value, a religion, an ethnic or national identity, a patriotic vision, etc., they sacrifice their personal life in the service of their God, quote unquote God. Although idiosyncratic and perverse, this is fundamentally a religious phenomenon that derives from the archetypal collective unconscious. Sadly, the much needed knowledge of this level of the psyche is not generally available. For those interested in seeking it, I recommend a serious study of the psychology of C.G. Jung, unquote. So that's what Dr. Edinger said in his letter to the editor of the LA Times immediately after the Oklahoma City bombings. As a sign of the times, this letter was not published. Instead, the nation was deluged with mere descriptions of the horror, along with biographies of the suspects with hardly a line of print or moment of television dedicated to understanding what had happened. The governor of Oklahoma would say at a memorial service, "We can't understand why it happened." Billy Graham, Baptist chaplain to the nation, had already confessed on national television before a crowd of weeping survivors that he did not know why God allows things like this to happen. Nobody seems to know what is going on, yet Edinger's book bravely tells us. So that's what this book is about. I urge you to read it. As you see, I have a few tabs in the important areas of this book, and there are many, many important passages here. But the point is, and part of the reason I did this reading this afternoon, is that we have to stop ignoring psychology and psychological issues in our everyday life and in our national current affairs. If we don't, then we're going to see a lot more of what we've seen here. Dr. Edinger referred to resentments, and obviously the mostly men who attacked the Capitol on the 6th of January were all resentful of something, but they couldn't really articulate it. They just were resentful, and they got carried away with this psychological, psychic epidemic, and most of them probably didn't intend to do what, in fact, they did when they got to the Capitol. There were a few, of course, and those that did it intentionally have to be punished. But anyway, I hope you'll go back and read this essay, and that's all I have to say. So just start at the beginning and listen to it. It's short, and you'll get a good idea of what it's all about. And we need to have better understanding, psychological understanding in the country generally. Another area that it's needed is in educating our young people about what it means to be married and how to handle troublesome times in a marriage, because the fact that we don't do it and we ignore the mental health of our nation means that we have a 50% divorce rate. Now, if a 50% divorce rate doesn't create a lot of resentful people, I don't know what would. And so that's my homily for today. Thank you for listening.